are watching Platinum Northwest TV News. Good evening and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Philadelphia Mangoeng. Let's take a look at the leading top stories. First up, President Ramaphosa participates in the 79th session of the UN General Assembly, and climate experts are warning of more extreme weather as the planet gets hotter. In the business news, while facing store closures, Pick n Pay's latest trading statements reveal that sales only grew 0.1%. And in the sports news, 3 teams are set to represent South Africa at the CAF competition. We begin here. President Cyril Ramaphosa participated in the 79th session of the UN General Assembly. This annual gathering of world leaders is the most important event on the UN calendar, with heads of state and government and heads of international organizations discussing global challenges and how to address these challenges in the best interest of humanity. This year, the African group presides over the General Assembly, with Mr. Philemon Yang, the former Prime Minister of Cameroon, elected as the president of the 79th session. Among the issues President Cyril Ramaphosa focused on during his engagement in New York include the necessity for maintenance of international peace and security, the sustainable development goals, and the implementation of the 2030 agenda of climate change and financing for development, health, and pandemic preparedness.
Thank you for this moment, President of the General Assembly, Secretary General, heads of state and government, and excellencies. Let me start off by congratulating Namibia and Germany for the excellent work they have done in guiding us all to this moment on reaching consensus on the pact of the future. We meet, President, at a time when the world faces many challenges and threats as well. Wars, conflict, and the specter of emerging conflicts are ever persistent and present features of our time. Climate change and public health challenges are not only an existential threat, but they are also reversing economic growth and developmental gains in many parts of the world. There is widespread inequality, poverty, unemployment, deprivation, and destitution in many countries in the world. These challenges transcend borders. Through this summit of the future, we must therefore forge global consensus on how to implement the solutions that are embedded in the pact. This pact must bridge the developmental divide. It must provide practical solutions to the challenges of today and tomorrow. The pact for the future is a great opportunity to change and also to reinvigorate the multilateral system so that it is fit for purpose to address the challenges that the world faces. It is an opportunity also to make good on the promises to reform the global governance architecture, including the international finance institutions and the United Nations Security Council, placing the fate of the world's security in the hands of a select few when it is the vast majority of the peoples of the world who bear the brunt of the various threats is unjust, unfair, and unsustainable. We agree with the UN Secretary General that the Summit of the Future is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to forge global consensus and make progress on priorities such as sustainable development goals. For African countries, the summit must focus on global action in support of the continent's development agenda, Agenda 2063. To be meaningful, this summit of the future should reinforce the work towards ending poverty and realizing the fundamental right of development. This summit, therefore, must accelerate our collective efforts to advance development. The key element of the summit is working towards an agenda for peace, and this must involve strengthening the multilateral actions that need to continue taking place. We do believe that this is the time to recommit ourselves to adopting concrete actions, so we should leave this summit with a more ambitious, clearer and concrete call to action to build a world for future generation that is far better for young people and for women than the world that we live in today. Our failure will in the end be a betrayal for future generations. And I do believe that we dare not fail. Action is what is required now. Thank you very much.
In other news, climate experts are warning of more extreme weather as the planet gets hotter. This weekend saw an unusual snowstorm blanket in parts of KZN, the Free State and the Eastern Cape. University of Cape Town climate scientist Dr. Peter Johnston says that climate change is making it more difficult to predict patterns. But even when warnings are issued, many choose to ignore them. Meanwhile, at least 2 people have died from hypothermia after being trapped in the snow on the N3 in the KwaZulu-Natal Midlands. KwaZulu-Natal Acting Premier Tembani Madlopha-Mthethwa made the announcement at a briefing on Sunday afternoon. Madlopha-Mthethwa gave an update on the interventions to deal with the current severe weather impacting the province. She also outlined emergency measures, coordinating efforts with rescue teams and steps being taken to ensure the safety of residents and road users. Moving on to international news, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has begun a high-stake visit to the United States, during which he will present Kiev's plan to end the more than 2.5-year war against invading Russia's forces to U.S. President Joe Biden, as well as election rivals Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Zelenskyy, who will also attend the annual meeting of the United Nations on Tuesday and Wednesday, urged Ukraine's allies to help achieve a shared victory for a truly just peace. He is expected to present his peace proposal, which he dubbed a victory plan, to Biden on Thursday before later meeting with Kamala Harris, who is the vice president. Now, his office said that he expects to meet Republican candidate Donald Trump on Thursday or Friday, although no date has been officially announced as yet. And with that, let's take a look now at the business news. In the business news, many analysts have warned to approach Pick n Pay with caution as the company is closing stores and losing market share to its competitors. Pick n Pay's latest trading statement revealed that sales only grew 0.1% and it expects earnings per share to decrease by more than 20%. In comparison, Shoprite, which owns brands like Checkers and Usafe, showed a strong performance. Revenue was up 12.1% and trading profit grew by 11.7% to 13.40 billion rand. Even more telling was that Pick n Pay closed 16 supermarkets, including 4 corporate stores and 12 franchise stores in the first 21 weeks of the financial year. Shoprite has taken over many Pick n Pay stores. It had opened 8 new supermarkets at sites previously occupied by Pick n Pay on the East Rand. In more business news, America's 3 Mile Island energy plant, the site of the worst nuclear accident in U.S. history, is preparing to reopen as Microsoft looks for ways to satisfy its growing energy needs. The tech giant said that it signed a 20-year deal to purchase power from the Pennsylvania plant, which would reopen in 2028 after improvements. The agreement is intended to provide the company with a clean source of energy as power-hungry data centers for artificial intelligence expand. The plan will now go to regulators for approval. The owner of the plant, Constellation Energy, said that the reactor it planned to restart was next to but fully independent of the unit that had been involved in the 1979 accident. And that's all from the business news. Up next, we get the latest in the sports. In soccer news, Stellenbosch FC secured their first place on the group stage of the CAF Confederations League with a 3-1 aggregate victory over Asvita. Now, the Betway Championship club were 2-0 winners a week ago at the Danny Cravens Stadium and played to a 1-1 draw at the Stade des Maîtres on Sunday to progress to the next round, all while playing the entire second half with a man down. Now, Mamelodi Sundowns also secured their place in the CAF Champions League group stage with a dominant 4-0 victory over Mbabane Swallows, completing an 8-0 aggregate triumph, while Orlando Pirates overcame joining Galaxy 1-0 in their second leg encounter at the Orlando Stadium on Saturday to qualify for the CAF group stages. In the final minute of injury time, Ofokeng cleverly maneuvered to set up Monapule Saleng to chip home to hand Pirates a 1-0 lead on the night and a 3-0 aggregate scoreline. Moving on to cricket news, Aiden Markram scored a composed half-century to guide the Proteas to a consolidation win in the third one-day international against Afghanistan at the Shara Stadium. Now, it was Markram's 11th ODI 50, now his first since scoring 91 against Pakistan in last year's World Cup. The Proteas lost the first match by 6 wickets after they were bowled out 406 after winning the toss and batting first. In the second match, the Proteas were bundled out 434, chasing 311. For the Proteas, speedster Lungingidi, young spinner Ngaba Peter and Andile Phehlukwayo took 2 wickets each to restrict Afghanistan. Now, following their 2-1 series defeat, South Africa will need to pick themselves up with a quick turnaround ahead of the 5-match campaign against North Ireland. Now, they will play Ireland in the first of 2 T20 internationals in Abu Dhabi on Friday, which will be followed by 3 one-day internationals between the two sides. And that's all from us for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back again on Wednesday evening. Till then, good night and take care.